Marathon County Board to order. Before you stand up for the moment of silence and the pledge, just want to let you know that Chairman Gibbs called in sick. He's got the flu, and he didn't feel like he wanted to share that with anybody here, so he's taking the night off. So, and then before I get to the pledge, Jerry Klein's got an announcement about your iPads.
Good evening. I know a number of you are already helping with this, but we have across the aisle in the clerk's office, right behind the glass windows, there are 4 IT staff. We need to touch as many iPads. Hopefully, all of them need to get touched tonight. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes. They have 2 or 3 different changes they need to make to them. They have plenty in there right now. But in about 20 minutes or a half hour from now, perhaps, if anyone wants to get up and stretch, if you could drop your iPad over there, they'll bring it back to you in about 20 minutes after that. And anybody that's not willing to let theirs go, they'll be here after the meeting as long as we can stay and people are willing to give them to us. Any questions? Will they bring them here? I'll bring them back in here, yeah. Yeah, so they have a whole bunch over there right now, so I don't need any new ones right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, now we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence and reflection.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to number 3, reading of notice.
The adjourned annual meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse, Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, December 17th, 2019, at 7 p.m., and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. Number 4, request silence of the cell phones and electronic devices before we get the meeting going. Number 5, roll call, so everybody please sign in. Supervisor Rosenberg, could you confirm? And supervisors? Oh, well, I can see it, yeah. Can you see, okay.
Everybody could confirm that, huh? Oh, I can see it, so you guys don't have to.
Supervisor Gaber? Confirm. Getting to the end of the year, we're gonna need new batteries. Thank you. All right, I'd like to welcome all the guests we have this evening here, and for the ones that are viewing on TV. It's gonna be quite a long agenda, but it's the last one of the 2019 year, so we'll get through it. Number 7, public comment. We do have one person that signed up, Francis Slazak, sorry.
Good evening. My name's Frances Slazak, and I live here in Wausau, and I'm joining you tonight to say thank you. I've been meaning to get back to for the stars to align to thank you for about 2 months now, but, well, it's hard to leave the house with an infant. In January of this year, Marathon County began providing a very direct investment in my life and the life of my growing family. At my first WIC appointment, my dietitian referred me to Marathon County's Start Right program, And a few weeks later, a public health nurse named Kayla came to visit me. And it was exactly what I needed. I was pregnant for the first time and working as a server, as well as going back to school to get a teaching degree. The enormity of change in my life then and now can be overwhelming. Throughout my pregnancy and in the first few months of my daughter's life, Kayla and the Start Right program provided invaluable information and guidance that has kept us healthy and on the path to success. From the beginning, Kayla conducted assessments to determine what specific risk factors we faced, and based on what she learned, she provided resources, referrals, and education to eliminate or to reduce those risks. Because we participated in the Start Right program, we knew how to prioritize our preparations, how to talk to our OB about concerns or changes. Hey, kiddo. And we knew where we could get help when we needed it, and where to turn when we didn't know. Beyond pregnancy support, Kayla and the Start Right program gave us a lot of technical know-how when it comes to parenting. Kayla improved our understanding of what life with a newborn would look like. She worked with us to develop a plan for how to address the immediate challenges of parenting, how to prevent accidents, what to do when the baby won't stop crying, because there are times. That's just a cough, kiddos. Who to call when you just don't feel right, and how to share the burdens and joys of parenthood. As a taxpayer in Marathon County, I am proud that my dollars fund programs like this because I know the services that we've received are just the tip of the iceberg for families, for what Start Right can do for families that are truly in crisis and welcoming a child. I'm proud to know that I am part of a community that values families and strives to make the start of life less stressful for all involved. As a participant in the Start Right program, I am forever grateful to Kayla, the health department, and Marathon County for giving me and my family the support we needed to get our family off on the right foot. As I continue to move through this period of epic change in my life, it is of great comfort to me to know where and who I can turn to for help when I need it. So tonight, from the tips of my toes to the top of my head and the very bottom of my heart, thank you for voting to continue to support my family and families like mine.
Thank you, Francis. All right, moving on to B reports. B8, report on comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. We have our Parks Director, Jamie Polly, here to do the presentation.
All right, thank you very much for having me tonight to go over this. I will try to make it as brief as possible because I know we have a very long agenda tonight, but I wanted to go over a little bit of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that we've been working a year on to update before you vote on adopting it later in the meeting. So I'll go through the chapters really quickly, but wanted to highlight each chapter. There's 6 chapters and what they include. Chapter 1 is an introduction, really the purpose of the plan. And the purpose of the plan is to help us plan for the current and future trends of our parks and for our residents, to guide us through improvements and continual improvements of our park and trail system, and to also make us eligible for state and federal grants. This is a very important part of the plan that allows us to move forward. It's also a supporting document for the county's comprehensive plan as well as the strategic plan, and it aligns with some state and local initiatives, which I'll touch on in just a bit. Whoops. I want to end it. So we went through a pretty extensive planning process, and we did hire MSA consultants to help us, and we do have Mr. Frater here tonight in case you have any questions specifically of MSA that I can't answer. But we went through a planning process that we began in March, and our Parks Commission had a lot to do with the planning process throughout. So we had a kickoff meeting, we developed a community survey. That community survey went through April, and then we also have a public involvement meeting. In one of the appendixes is all of that information from those meetings and the feedback we got from our community. Then we worked on the plan development. We had the Parks Commission look at it a few times, and then we had a public review 30-day public review period as well. Once the draft plan was put together, we got quite a bit of input from that. It actually took an extra month to do some more tweaks to it, and then went to the Parks Commission for 2 more discussions, and then it's been in front of them. They made a recommendation to the county board to approve it. It also went to the Environmental Resources Committee. They made a recommendation to approve it tonight and move it forward. Some of the highlights of that chapter 1 is really the economic prosperity part, and that's what I mentioned earlier about how we align with state and local initiatives. Looking at this plan, it's not a plan that we want to just put on the shelf. It's a usable plan that we can guide our park system moving forward, and really how does it align with what we're doing in not just locally, but in the state and the region as well. So if you look on the Department of Tourism's page, their main page says right there that outdoor tourism is a key driver to Wisconsin's tourism. And the governor has developed this Office of Outdoor Recreation, which they're working on hiring for that position. So the state is looking at outdoor recreation as a key tool of bringing people here to the state of Wisconsin. Earlier this year, the Chamber of Commerce also rolled out their comprehensive plan that they put together to get people here to the Marathon County area and the greater Wausau area. And it really highlights outdoor recreation as an asset to what we have. And those facilities that they're talking about in this plan, most of them are governed by the Wausau Marathon County Parks Department, with the exception of Red Mountain State Park, and then the parks that are within our neighboring communities, such as Cornwall, Rothschild, Schofield, Weston. So that's a key part of number 1 and how we play that key role. Going into chapter 2, it really talks about Marathon County. All of the different topics there are different topics within that chapter 2. It's really what makes up Marathon County, what are our demographics, what is our physical characteristics, what do our existing parks have, and what do our regional facilities have. Going ahead to chapter 3, this is a more important, well, they're all important chapter, but this is a little bit more specific chapter on what our mission, vision, and goals are. Throughout this year, after I started, we looked at our mission of our department, and we came up with a little bit different mission than what we had in the past. So the mission of our Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department is to adaptively manage our park and forest lands for natural resource sustainability, while providing healthy recreational opportunities and unique experiences, making Marathon County the preferred place to live, work, and play. And we really wanted to touch on our forestry area of our department, and the economic development portion that brings into the county, to the state, to the management of our natural resources, as well as what we provide to the health, the safety, and the wellness of our residents. But we have 6 goals that we're working off of within this plan. The first one is to provide an adequate and suitable park and forest land base for the needs of our citizens. Second one is to protect the county's natural, historic, and cultural resources. We have a lot of those within our parks that we need to preserve. And the goal 3 is to maintain all our park and forest facilities according to recognized and acceptable community standards. So we do have a list within this area that talks about what we strive for each of our parks to have, in addition to making them all ADA accessible and going through what's needed to be welcoming to everybody. Goal 4 is to recognize and utilize our select county parks and forest facilities to generate revenue for users. We do have facilities that we do charge fees for, and we need to continue to look at these fees and how they help manage our department, as well as move us forward. I'm going to touch on one really quick. 9 Mile is not in this plan because it is a county forest, and it's referred to in our county forest 15-year land use plan. However, with that particular park, just for instance, or East Bay Sports Complex, I could use an example too, is those 2 facilities are special revenue funds. They're enterprise funds that do not come off of our county tax base. They are managed and supported by the fees that we charge for the uses of those facilities. The ebb and flow each year, we do have a goal of what we meet, but those are what those two specific facilities are meant for, and we'll look at more of these and how we can better manage those facilities as well. Goal 5 is to promote outdoor recreation by providing information, education, and interpretive services to the public concerning what we have and all the programs that we have. We really need to educate. I think I mentioned this when I first started, is I grew up in Marathon County. I attended a lot of the parks, but when I really realized what we had is when I did my research to come back for this position. didn't think I'd have to research so much the community I grew up in, but that just really showed me that you can live here all your life and you could really have no clue of what we have right in your backyard. And I think we need to do a better job of educating our own community of what we have. And then goal 6 is to cooperate with all units of government, service organizations, and special interest groups on our recreational needs. Not most, but a lot of what we do in our department, we would not have been able to do without the groups that we work with. The biking trails that have been built, the ski trails that have been built, the soccer complex, and the investment that our soccer association makes. We have groups out there willing to invest in our facilities that helps us build them and helps us maintain them and helps us fund them, really. So just highlights of these, we have different policies and strategies for all the 6 goals. And if you look within that chapter and read through that chapter, you'll see there's not just one. But wanted to highlight kind of the specific for each goal that really we're looking forward. But for the goal 1, our policy is that we want to have 26 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents and a park within 20-minute drive time. I'll show in just a second kind of where we're missing a few of the gaps, but really we do have a pretty good coverage. Goal 3, a strategy, includes funding and maintaining our parks facilities to provide support facilities necessary and are suitable to our constituents. We need to make sure that we have facilities that people want to use and will come back time after time. Goal 4 strategy is to the consideration of facility expansion for recreation services that are in demand by tourists. If we're going to be part of the economic driver, what are those facilities that people are looking at coming and visiting, specifically when we're here, and maybe investing a little bit more in that. Goal 5 is emphasizing the department's role in promoting outdoor recreation. We are part of not just, a nice place for people to go. We are a part of why people come to the county, and we want to work as a partner in all those areas to make sure that that's important. And then a strategy of goal 6 is to include development requirements and joint efforts for cost sharing and participating with state and local initiatives. Just touched on that. We can't do it alone, so we need those partners to be able to get the things we do done and the facilities built. Chapter 4, it really covers the analysis of needs and demands. We had a quantitative analysis. So an example here is it shows the number of acres of park we have. If we want to stick to that 26 acres of park per 1,000 residents, by the time we get to 2030, we do have a negative in that parkland, not by much, so we're doing pretty well. But if we keep up on that as the county grows, we need to keep in mind what our facilities needs are as well. The next one, the geographic analysis on that map, those circled areas are those communities outside of a 20-minute drive time of a county park. So you'll see we have some gaps in the southwest corner and the southeast corner. Now in the southwest, where those gaps are, that is around like Marshfield areas, which has their own city parks. So it's not that these residents are completely without parks in their area, but within a county park, they're outside of that 20-minute drive time. Chapter 4 also talks about our analysis of our qualitative analysis, and it really dives into that survey. So in the survey, we had 1,194 participants, which in a county of 140,000 doesn't seem like very many. However, in a statistically, looking at it statistically, the makeup of the amount of people that took the survey actually matched pretty well to the makeup of the county. So if I don't have this in front of me, but I have it in here. If 30% of our county is the city of Wausau, we had about 30% from the city of Wausau take the survey, and it was pretty evenly matched among the county and the residents there. In the appendix that shows everything, it breaks down exactly how many people from what area took it, what their ages were, and all that information. But it shows here that we had, 91 out of 100 people say that parks and recreation and outdoor recreation is important to the quality of life. And 75 out of 100 people really like our current variety and our current quality of our park system. So we have some room there. We need to get those other 25. And then it talks about, where they would fund. We ask a question about if you were to spend your tax dollars more or want to put more money towards, what would you put it towards? And you can see here the breakdown that there's a portion that would spend the same. that we currently do now on our parks. There's a portion that would spend more, and a very small portion that would spend less. So it looks like people really support what we do, at least to spend the same amount of their tax dollars now as they do today. And then lastly, in this chapter, it does look at the statewide outdoor recreation plan, or the SCORP, and kind of aligns us with how the state is looking at outdoor recreation. Chapter 5 covers every single county facility we have. This is an example of the sheets that would be for each park. I picked Rib Falls, for example. It talks about what our existing facilities are. Recommendations, a lot of these have carried over from our last plan. That was from 2007 to 2012. We have priorities to them now, 1 to 3 years for high priority. Medium priority is 3 to 5 years, and low priority is beyond 5 years. And the playground replacement, I just realized, has the wrong year on there. It says 2024, but it's actually being done in 2020. So, or no, this is Rib Falls, so that could be, but that would be then a low priority because it would be beyond that 5 years. So I got to make a change there. And then it also comes with a map of the area. So we have all the parks in there. We have 17 county parks that are mapped out like this. Most of them have 2 pages. Marathon Park has about 6 pages because it's our largest park. But then you can really see what our items are there to look at. And then the last part of chapter 5 talks about new, or not the last part, but another part of chapter 5 talks about our new or expanded facilities, looking at where we could expand parks to meet that 20-minute drive time, looking at areas that could be expanded with just adjacent land to make the park a little bit bigger for more uses. And we've kind of been looking at that as part of our strategic plan for the county, is to purchase that 320 acres per year for next 5 years of park or forest land. This is where we would look in those areas for that park land. And then one large area that I wanted to point out in Chapter 5 is the recommendation on trail improvements. One of the tasks we had in this year process going forward was to look at all of the trail plans within the county. There's the North Central Regional Planning Commission trail plan, there's the MPO trail plan. The Highway Department has a plan on where they would do extra wide trails. And really looking at all of that, there wasn't a clear, identified, really good trail plan. So our recommendation out of this outdoor recreation plan is to develop this countywide multimodal transportation subcommittee that would come out of our infrastructure committee as well as our parks committee to look at what is our goal. Is our goal to get somebody from point A to point B? And then how do we get them there? What's the safest way that we can get them there? And if it does include a county road, we get the highway commissioner at the table in the infrastructure committee and say this area of this section should be wider shoulder. It could include town roads. It could include off-road trails that we need to do some land acquisition for, but that would get an actual Marathon County plan for what our purpose is. So that's a big recommendation out of this plan. Some highlights for ongoing recommendation is to align our county's programming with the county comprehensive plan, especially with the health priorities. Coordinate closely with local municipalities to benefit for the local improvements. That's our partnership, and that also, I think, includes our school districts as well. Coordinate with the local units of government in the DNR on other plans. I just came from a meeting about Rib Mountain State Park and that plan to open up that master plan, and we will be at the table on how do we connect the rest of the county and all the areas to Rib Mountain State Park, and specifically how do we connect 9 Mile to Rib Mountain State Park. That's been a big need, but we need to look outside of that as well. And then we have master plans that we need to develop, so a goal is to do 1 per year, and then annually update the Parks Commission, the Environmental Advisory Committee, and the County Board on how we're doing going forward and where we're at. So chapter 6, our last chapter, kind of gets to the nuts and bolts of the implementation of this plan. And it really highlights, and this is the area where I really want to point out to the county board, when we look at what we have out there, this kind of talks about what those costs might be and how our planning would be going forward. So the implementation includes some tools and funding ways to implement this. There's grants out there, there's different dollars, there's partnerships, so we'll look at a lot of those. But then one of our strategic plans, as I mentioned, is that 320 acres of acquisition. Currently, the state has the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund that helps us purchase land at 50% of that cost. So And then when we get to use the value of the donated land like we had this year, we were able to buy about 200 acres for about $9,000, I think it cost us, or just under that. That really helps. That grant, that stewardship fund only goes right now through 2021. If it doesn't get renewed, in front of you is the range of the cost of land that it could cost us if we want to continue that acquisition for the next 5 years with that strategic plan. If we have the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund to use, those dollars are in half. So that's the cost of land based on what we were currently purchasing land for, about $2,300 an acre at that 320 acres. So that's a $500,000 to $1 million investment per year if we want to continue that as a strategic plan without that grant funding. So I wanted to point that out. Another implementation area in here is to, as you noticed on Chapter 5 where it talks about each facility, the anticipated cost to fund our park maintenance at the high, medium, and low priorities. And this is, we know this is an ideal world. We would like to get everything on our high priority done right away. Obviously, we'll work with what we have as budgets, and we maintain the facilities as we were, and we'll continue to do that. But if we were to tackle all of the high priority projects, which is the first 1 to 3 years, we would need to budget about $500,000 per year for the next 3 years. Then going beyond that for those medium priority projects, depending on what we want to do, we could fund anywhere, from $350,000 up to $750,000. A lot of that is CIP projects. A lot of these are little projects that we include in our dollars allocated in our general fund budget every year, that we get those small projects off the table. So we'll keep putting that away. But that's about $100,000 we have been given each year to update and to try to get our facilities up. And we will continue to manage that appropriately to get these priorities off of the list. And then our low priorities really are those beyond 5 years. It looks like a very small amount, but we have a couple of low priorities of replacing bridges and parking lots that are not included in this amount. So that could range. A bridge could be extremely expensive. So we're looking, that would be something we'd really look for grant dollars in those bigger projects. And the last area of this Chapter 6 that I wanted to point out is our department has changed a lot over the last years in what our role is within the county, what our role is within the system. We are no longer a department that just maintains facilities for people to go and have a picnic or to go on a day trip just to walk around. We now, in addition to maintaining the facilities and keeping them high quality, our department is responsible for helping set up almost every special event that you attend within this area, helping organize those events, managing staff for those events. We have the special use facilities that have been built that people demand. We have the user groups that have been more than generous to build facilities, but with that comes a maintenance cost that we have to continue to maintain. So, and then we play a role in that economic development portion to bring people here as well. So with that, to keep our department moving forward and to keep providing the high quality services that we provide, and we can do a better job, we know that. Right now we have 44 full-time employees, actually 43.6 full-time employees. And we're not fully staffed. As you'll see tonight, there are some staffing changes that we're making. But if we want to continue and we want to accept our user groups and our partners in maintaining facilities, there's a recommendation in here that our department needs to look at expanding 3 positions within the next 5 years. And that's to provide better services, better programs, more programs, but also with the programming side. When I was hired, one of the things mentioned to me was to try to increase the recreation program side of what we do for both the city and the county. Now remember, our department's a joint, so those 3 positions doesn't necessarily mean that the county's funding 3 positions, because we'd have to go to the city side as well, because there will be city uses for that. But that's the recommendation, and then 1 additional full-time person just for recreation. So, and that's really a lot of city side with the pool, their area, so we'll have the 3 pools we do. So, and then we have at the end 3 appendices that I mentioned already that have a lot of that public input. We did not edit any of the comments that some people wrote in for those surveys, so you will see exactly what they wrote, how they spelled it. It's all there, but that information is very helpful and useful. Then we have some supporting maps and our park and open space classifications. So the action we're requesting tonight later on is to move the resolution forward to adopt the outdoor recreation plan as we've worked on for the last year. And then I wanted to point out at the very end, hopefully I've said it before, but if I haven't and you don't know it, the Marathon County side of us, our parks, turn 100 in 2020. And so we are planning a 100th anniversary celebration on June 13th. So just mark your calendars. More information to come on what we're planning to do. But that is a big deal. And so we're trying to get the word out. We're going to work with this Historical Society to do a lot of information on where our county parks have been, where they were, where they are, and where they're going in the next 100 years. And then we can do it all over again in 2024 when our partnership with the City-County Park Partnership turns 100. So I don't know if we have any questions right now or if we do that during the resolution, but that's all I have.
Thank you, Jamie. Supervisor Zerini.
Thank you, Vice Chair. A couple questions. I'm curious on Chapter 3. You talked about fees, and we're very cognizant about trying to raise revenues. And one question is, what are today of your overall budget? What % of your budget are revenues from fees?
Oh, I should know that off the top of my head. I don't know that off the top of my head, and I can give that information.
10%?
Well, our user fees are probably about 30%, but if you bring in the county forest timber sales, that's a larger percentage.
Okay, and what are your ideas for expanding those fees? I mean, when I just off the top of my head, you've got your camping fees and your boat launch fees, your shelter fees, but what other sources of revenue can you come up with?
Well, a big part of our fees come from our special events that we can have in our parks, so from the facility usage that they have. So I think that's probably one of the big areas that we'll look at is being able to hold bigger events and trying to get more events into our facilities and different facilities, not only at 9 Mile. But we also have to look at, I think, how our county parks are used. Right now, we do have fees for every little thing. We have a bike fee, we have a skiing fee, we have a boat launch fee. Maybe instead of having all the fees individually, maybe we need to look at a different type of fee that incorporates all of that may be a better revenue source. But I think we have to look at a lot of different opportunities.
Supervisor Overbeck.
You had mentioned some of the public or groups that you work with as far as the volunteers. And I just got a question. How does the snowmobile clubs, I mean, there's 863 miles within the county, brings in a substantial amount of revenue, connects a lot of places, but there's an extensive amount of money that comes in from the state as well as the money that's raised by the clubs. How does that work into the comprehensive plan as far as economic development within the Marathon County?
Sure. Well, it's one of the things we do want to continue to focus on. So we have right now a 0.6 position that specifically manages our grants that work with the ATV and the snowmobile coordinator or snowmobile clubs. We do have 29 snowmobile clubs in the county, and we're very fortunate that they work as hard as they do on their mileage. But that's what our coordinator will really help enhance that connection with them. So far, he's been doing a really great job of connecting one-on-one with each club, trying to get more miles, trying to make from the state funded. Every snowmobile club that gets their trails approved through the state gets $300 per mile for maintenance of that trail, but they have to log all of the maintenance that they do, and we have to account for that. So that's what our 0.6 person does for us, is he verifies everything that they do and turns it into the state. But I think it's that working collaboratively and having somebody in our office that will work closely with them to keep them engaged, because they are volunteers. If they don't do it, we don't have those trails available. And I think getting the information out there too, on just telling the story of our snowmobile clubs and what economic impact they do make in the area and on the county. And really, a lot of their trails are private land. So we also have to recognize those landowners and what they're giving to the county to let these trails cross, because there's very few, if any, on public land in this county.
Thank you. Supervisor Nutting.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And thank you, Ms. Polly, for the tremendous work that you are doing and taking the baton from Mr. Duncanson and running with it so very well. And we really appreciate the partnership that the county and the city have together for these tremendous assets that we have in our parks departments. Could you just remind me briefly of how the balance of the partnership, what the city's financial involvement is, and to the counties, and if that would just be helpful to be reminded of that. The
Sure.
percentage, I think.
Yeah, so what we do right now is we have we have job costing within our department. So any area that we work on, we track where our work is being done. Anything being done in a city facility is tracked to the city, and the city is billed back for that. Every position we have has an allocation of whether they're 50% city, 50% county, and then as we work on projects, we look at those allocations, and each year we tweak that a little bit too. You know, this last year with River Life being added on the city side, that added a little bit more to our city responsibilities, but the city then also helped fund an extra position for that specific park to keep it going. So it's the job costing that keep it pretty even. A lot of our department is 50-50. We have a few that are 100% county or 90% county, and we have a couple that are 90% city, but we track all of that, and then we just bill it back, and it's worked very, very well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Jamie? Okay, thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was one more question. Supervisor Seibert.
Has there been any thought of the county working with the state? I'm from the southwest portion of the state. And we have state so public property that isn't maintained as any kind of a park with picnic tables but they are there. And I just think it would be a lot cheaper for Marathon County to work in conjunction with the state on developing. I know there's 2 boat landings that would be beautiful spots for little parks, and the property is already there. And if the state ever considered doing something like that.
We can look into that. We do work pretty closely with the state in other areas. You know, the Mountain Bay State Trail is a state trail that we maintain, and we have that partnership. So I think it's a matter of starting that conversation, and we already have that conversation with them in other areas. So yeah, I wasn't aware of it, so I can look into that further, and we just have to have that conversation. But our relationship with the state, as well as our other local municipalities, has been improving, and I've been trying to talk with each municipality on just how we can work together on our resources. So that's something I can look into.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again, Jamie, for the report. No further questions. We'll move on to B9, update on jail repair project and revised cost estimate. And I believe we have Michael Lauder. Give us an update on that.
Good evening. I'll be very brief. Hopefully it won't take very long at all. Jail project's going really good. Today, we should have gotten approval from the DOC to move prisoners back into the space, would be F block through L block. That's phase 1 of our project. That was where the most issues were with the structural columns and the capitals. Originally, we started with 12 columns and capitals that needed to be replaced. The scope changed to 48. We currently have 44 done. 1,900 high-strength steel bolts were added to the structure. The engineer is very happy with the outcome and the results of that. Last week, we added some structural steel to the underside of the first floor in the ceiling of the parking garage in the C lot. And that project was anticipated to take about 6 days. They got it done in 2 days. And again, the engineer was very happy. What they did is put a structural steel web underneath the floor and then hydraulically jack the floor up and place shims in place to hold the floor in place and add and move the support to the columns. They were able to bring the floor up 7/16 of an inch. Then when they took the pressure back off, the floor did settle back onto the steel. The steel we gained 3/16. But again, he was very happy with the results of that. We are currently going to move prisoners back into, I believe, K and I block from M and O. And then we're going to do the work in M, N, and O block. That is scheduled to be done the middle to the end of January. Our budget is currently right on track where we said we were going to be. The current estimate is at $2,086,519, but within that we have $80,000 worth of contingencies that we don't look like we're going to spend. So we're very confident we're going to be very close to the amount that this board approved to use to do the project. I don't know if there's anything else I can tell you right now. It's going good, and we hope that we'll be done with it by the end of January. I can answer any questions anybody has.
Any questions for Michael? Okay, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Good news, we're getting some of the people back. All right, moving on to C, consent agenda 10 through 12. Motion by Supervisor Langahan, second by Supervisor Zhang. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote then. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to D13, Life and Public Service of Ralph Weeks.
Ralph Weeks, 78, of Wausau, passed on November 10th, 2019. He was born in Terre Haute, Indiana, to Juanita and Russell Weeks. He is survived by his wife Karen, son Russell, stepchildren David, Lisa, and Lance, siblings Robert, Don, Kay, and Janet, as well as several grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Ralph was a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, serving 2 tours in Vietnam, and was a recruiter when he retired. Upon retirement, he went to work for the post office for 20 years. Ralph and Karen dedicated their lives to serving foster children. They began foster parenting in Michigan and continued when they moved to Wisconsin. They helped foster over 250 children, and in 2011 were honored as Foster Parents of the Year in the state of Wisconsin. Ralph served as chairman in the town of Hewitt for several years and also served on the Marathon County Board from 2010 to 2012. During that time, he was a member of the Health and Human Services Committee, Extension and Education Committee, and the Northern Valley Workshop. In the passing of Ralph Weeks, we have lost a leader who was dedicated to serving his community, especially its most vulnerable children. He is hereby honored and remembered for his faithful public service. Now therefore be it resolved by the Marathon County Board of Supervisors that they enter this memorial into the proceedings of the board out of respect for the memory of Ralph Weeks. A copy of this memorial shall be sent to his family with the sympathies of the board, dated this 17th day of December, 2019.
Motion by Supervisor Schaefer, second by Supervisor Christensen. Any discussion? Okay, we will vote then. Supervisor Johnson. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Can we please rise for a moment of silence? All right, appointments E, 14, Wisconsin Valley Library Service Board of Trustees.
Appointing Carrie Sweeney and Jim Backus as reappointments to the Wisconsin Valley Library Service Board of Trustees for 3-year terms to expire December 31st, 2022.
Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg, second by Supervisor Nutting. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll vote. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to E15, appointments, Board of Health.
Reappointing Dr. Michael McGrail to the Marathon County Board of Health for a term to expire December 31st, 2024.
Motion by Supervisor Robinson, second by Supervisor Draybeck. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to appointment 16, E16, Transportation Coordinating Committee.
Appointing Supervisor John Durham as Chair of the Transportation Coordinating Committee and ADRC member Tim Butke as Vice Chair of Transportation Coordinating Committee for 2 years for a term to expire at the Organizational County Board meeting in April 2020.
Supervisor Zerini with a motion, second by Supervisor Stark. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, we will vote. Motion passes unanimously. E17, Interim County Board Administrator.
Appointing Deputy Administrator Lance Leonard as the interim county administrator beginning on December 31st, 2019, to continue until such time as the county board appoints a county administrator.
Motion by Supervisor Seiler, second by Supervisor Johnson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, we will vote then. Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Schaefer.
Can he give us a little background? No, that's fine. I withdraw my question.
Thank you. Any other further questions? All right, we will vote. Supervisor Christensen? Working on it. Okay.
Oh, don't pay it. There we go.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to F ordinances, F18, Town of Bergen, rezone Tim Vierlin for Hugh and Jeannie Fear, and Jason and Casey Heeg. Ordinance 30-19. Motion by Supervisor Langahan, second by Supervisor Butke. Any discussion? No discussion? We will vote. Motion carries unanimously. E19 ordinances, Town Hall, rezone Jordan and Elaine Weaver. Ordinance 31-19. Supervisor Trembling with a motion, second by Supervisor Seibert. Any discussion? No discussion? We'll vote. Motion carries unanimously. Ordinance F19, Town Hall rezone, Jordan and Elaine Weaver. Or we did that one? I'm sorry, didn't check it off. F20, Town of McMillan rezone, Tim Vierlin for Jeff Rajek and Thomas and John Othmeyer. Resolution 32 or ordinance 32-19. Motion by Supervisor White, second by Supervisor Langahan. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, we'll vote. Motion carries unanimously. F21, Town of Wien rezone, Tim Vierlin for Michael Kuholth. Ordinance 33-19. Motion by Supervisor Nutting, second by Supervisor, Seibert, or I'm sorry, Seefeld. New sheet. Supervisor Seefeld. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'd rather do it that way. We'll vote then. I was doing good till now, so. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to F22, ordinance repealing and recreating the General Code of Ordinance for Marathon County, Chapter 18, Land Division and Survey Regulation Code. Supervisor Bowlby with a motion, second by Supervisor Christensen. Any discussion? Supervisor Gums.
I'd like to know, can the surveyors go on anybody's land wherever they want, or do they have to notify the landowner before they do that? Because we have issues.
We have Becky Frisch here in the surveyor, so if one of them would like to come up and address that.
I'm happy to introduce our county surveyor, Dave Decker, who will be able to answer the question.
Hi. They do have permission. A surveyor can enter someone's property to locate section corners that they need to use to do a survey. They have that right. They are supposed to get permission first, but if the landowners refuse, they do have the right to go get someone to help take them.
Have you been out in Holton lately?
Not lately, no. If you have a specific question, you can contact me and I'll help you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we will vote then. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to F23, amending section 5.04 of the General Code of Ordinance, eliminating Marathon County residency requirements for sworn deputies, sheriffs for Marathon County. Motion by Supervisor Zhang, second by Supervisor Durham. Any? Supervisor Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, tonight. Do we charge, if they can be within 15 minutes of the county line, that's 30 miles roughly, and they work 200 days a year, that's 6,000 miles. Are they paying something for the use of that auto to leave the county?
I'll refer that to the sheriff. I see he's in the back there.
So it works to our benefit to have those vehicles in the various areas. One of the places that we're getting applicants from is the Langley County area. We do a lot of prisoner transports that go from Wausau to Anago and back again because they're one of our providers for extra cell space. So they would be using that vehicle in that fashion. I don't look at it being as a vehicle that's benefiting them other than the fact that it's benefiting the county.
Follow up?
I know when I was on the road and I had a company car, the IRS, if I stopped and bought a pack of cigarettes, I had to pay for that car. If our patrolmen are out and they stop and get a jug of milk or they get a Twinkie or whatever it happens to be, do any of them pay any personal use of a vehicle? And if they don't, why not?
So the county permits them to use the vehicle to and from going to work, but the stops have to be very minimal. And for the most part, as soon as they get in the car, they're already answering calls for service because of the number of, or the volume of calls for service that are coming in. And we use them for calls for service on the way home. Tonight was another shining example of where we were holding cars over because of the snow that was in.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, stay up, Scott. No, just a simple question. I think this is a good thing because it'll expand your pool as long as it's practical response-wise. Do you think 15 miles is overly generous? Or, because that can be, especially in the winter, you're looking at adding a minimum 15 to maybe even up to a half an hour response time if the weather is hitting. So do you see that still being practical for operations despite the extra response time? Thanks.
So actually this change that we're asking for is more restrictive than what the state currently allows me to do. The state says that I can have individuals live within 15 miles of the county. We're saying that they have to respond within 15 minutes to our borders. So it's more in line with what our expectations are. And in this particular case, individuals, like I said, that are looking at applying for us are applying for us from other counties outside of us who have already got homes there. And if we can steal some from Langley County, that helps us cover that northeast area. And we're also stealing from Wood County, so it's helping us cover the southwest area.
Thank you. Any other questions for the sheriff? Any other questions? All right, then we will vote. Supervisor Durham. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to F24, repealing and recreating section 7.125 General Code of Ordinance addressing the designation of ATV, UTV routes and trails and regulations of ATV and UTV operations within Marathon County. Ordinance 36-19. Supervisor Johnson, or Robinson with a motion and a second by Supervisor White. Any discussion, Supervisor Robinson?
This is just a correcting ordinance. When we adopted the ordinance the last month, we put the speed limit in at 30 miles an hour, and it was supposed to be 35. And in addition, at the last infrastructure committee, some of the towns expressed some concerns, and we agreed that we would revisit the ordinance at the end of a year.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, then we will vote. Supervisor Durham? Thank you. Motion carries, but not unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to ordinance F25 to create section 2.05 task force on Marathon County board size, ordinance 37-19. Supervisor Zerini with a motion. Second by Supervisor Robinson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Ready to vote then? Motion passes, but not unanimously. Moving on to resolutions, G26, approval of Town of Ringgold local zoning ordinance, resolution 62-19. Supervisor Langenhan with a motion, second by Supervisor Schley. Any discussion? Any discussion? Ready to vote. Motion carries, but not unanimously. What's that?
Not once it's been announced.
Thank you. Resolution G27, approval of Town of Weston local zoning ordinance amendment, resolution 63-19. Motion by Supervisor White, second by Supervisor Christensen. Any discussion? I hope you read the 400 pages in there. Any discussion? What's that? Just the changes. Okay, just the changes. All right. Okay, well, no discussion. We're prepared to vote. Supervisor Durham, confirm. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to H28, Forestry Recreation Committee and Environmental Resource Committee. H28, to approve the annual county forest work plan, Resolution 64-19. Supervisor Bovee with the motion, second by Supervisor Seefeld. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, we're ready to vote then. Supervisor Rennie, confirm. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to H29, application for county forest acreage shared loan payment, Resolution 65-19. Supervisor Sly with a motion, second by Supervisor Butke. Any discussion? Any discussion? Then we'll vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to I, Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee. I-30, adoption of 2020 to 2024 County Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, Resolution 66-19. Supervisor Durham with a motion, second by Supervisor Nutting. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, prepared to vote. Motion carries unanimously. J, Resolution J31, Health and Human Services Committee, Elderly and Disabled Transportation, Wisconsin Statute 85.21 Grant Application, Resolution 67-19. Motion by Supervisor Wagner, second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Any discussion? Any discussion? Ready to vote then. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to Resolution K32, to create one full-time FTE Social Service Coordinator Child Support Relevant Grant Coordinator position, Resolution 68-19. Motion by Supervisor Stark, second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Any discussion? Any discussion? Ready to vote. Supervisor Zerny? Thank you. Supervisor Gums? Oh, yeah. Motion passes unanimously. K33, to create one full-time Conservation Specialist position, Resolution 69-19. Supervisor Durham with a motion, second by Supervisor Krause. Any discussion? Any discussion? Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I was just wondering what this position entails.
I'm not, is anybody here from, Becky's here? Yeah, she can answer that.
This is a federally funded position, 100%. And as a conservation specialist, they will be working in the same types of programs that we do here at the county level, except they'll spend more time explaining and offering information about federal programs that are available for farmers to do conservation work on their property. So it's funded through the feds, it's a county employee, and the type of work they do is the same land conservation work that our conservationists do. I work with farmers to install practices that help to keep the soil on the land and profitable and not in the waters.
Thank you. Does this daylight, I mean, there's
Yes.
limited time?
Yes, it's 3 years with a possibility of a 2-year extension after that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Schaefer?
Thank you. As long as Becky can answer. It says, outcome number 1 by December 31st, 2022, phosphorus from cropland and farms. Is someone actually going to check on that by then? Because I may not be here to question that.
Yes, we will check on it.
Any other questions? Any other questions? All right, then we're ready to vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. K34, restructuring of the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department, Resolution R70-19. Supervisor Schaefer with the motion, second by Supervisor Wagner. Any discussion? Any questions? All right, we'll vote. Me. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. K35, increasing range maximum for the Marathon County pay grid by 3% effective January 12th, 2020, Resolution 71-19. Supervisor Lowe, the motion, second by Supervisor Durham. Any discussion? Any discussion? Ready to vote. Supervisor Rooney? Supervisor Schley? That's it. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. K36, to disapprove the acquisition of Witter property located on County Highway U in the Village of Maine and the City of Wausau, Marathon County, for the purpose of constructing future county facilities. Resolution 72-19. Motion by Supervisor Stark, second by Supervisor Robinson. Is there any discussion before?
speak to it if I can.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Brad.
I want to give you a little bit of context. We could just go by and disallow this, but it does say it's going to come back in January, and I'm the only one who really knows all the context. So I want to take it back 12 years ago. The county board's plan was to build the Center for Civic Engagement in Marathon Park. Okay, now just think about, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I was here, everybody thought it was a good idea. I think what a terrible idea that would have been to put that great big building and all that parking in the middle of the jewel we have, Marathon Park. Well, citizens got a hold of that, and then there wasn't going to be any parking. So it was just going to be the theater. That was a terrible idea. So they said, you know what, we got to take a look at all of our property here and have a long-range plan, not just plop things down where there's available land. And we hired a firm that came in, helped us with some charrettes. We got engaged neighbors, we engaged businesses, and we came to the idea that we need to put it where it is now. The only barrier between where it is now and where it was then were 32 privately owned homes, which I personally led a team to purchase. And the congressman who funds paid for 2/3 or half or 2/3 of the funds said there'll be no eminent domain. Okay. Well, that made it an interesting challenge, and we managed to do that. That plan took a look at all those properties and said, look at, you know what, this university at that time was growing, and now it seems to be receding, but at that time it was growing. They needed more facilities. They had the earmark, which is a one-time thing. They knew that the congressman, Obie, wouldn't be there at long term, which turned out he wasn't, and that they would never have an opportunity like that again. So they took a look at that. They decided to build there. The other thing they did is took a look at Marathon Park and said, Marathon Park needs a long-term vision. You know, is it a fairgrounds? Is it a park? You know, when the fair meets, traffic's all backed up on Stewart Avenue. You have an opportunity here to expand to the south, put your storage facilities and your parking and some of the things that aren't park facilities, get some of the roads out of the park by expanding to the south. The other thing that they took a look at was the highway department. And they envisioned what has occurred now, that 17th Avenue is turned into Rib Mountain Speedway. That you would never on a blank sheet of paper locate an industrial site on that location. So they said it needs to move where it has easier access to the interstate and it's in a more rural agrarian setting. So that set all of those three things in motion. And the university project got built there. And then for years, we've been negotiating those, and it said purchase all of the properties on West Street for that park. So just a couple years ago, maybe this year, we bought the cold storage place. We've been negotiating for years because we had time, and we got that really for the price of the land. And now there's a foundry between us and there. The other goal that came out of the plan that I neglected to mention is our Parks Department is a great disadvantage. Our administrative offices are down on River Drive, and their crew is out on, it's not West Street, but just adjacent to it. I can't think of the street name. And they need to be put together. And then after that, Craig McEwen led a task force to look at how we do fleet maintenance. And that committee really liked the model that the city of Wausau had, which is departments rent or pay usage for the vehicles. They don't own them. And one department purchases them, maintains them, uses mechanics where the top priorities are, and it'd be a lot more efficient. But we couldn't get that accomplished without a common site. Having that on 4 different sites didn't make any sense, but we combined sheriff's car maintenance, highway vehicle maintenance, and parks vehicle maintenance in one site. So now, what the belief was, we needed one big site. And on a work plan that we had some years back, we went around looking for a site. And we started to do it ourselves, and we ended up with some things that seem funny now, like Jim Schaefer's property, Tim Butke's property. It's like, okay, we don't want to buy those. So, that would just create a political, we had people telling us, not those two, we had people telling us about different pieces of property. We didn't have a clear set of criteria, so we hired this Barrientos, which is a company from Milwaukee that has done this in other places. They help you come up with what the criteria are, then they take a look around and come up with what the top properties are. Well, we hired the firm, and they came up with a top priority, which is called the Witter Farm, which is out on County Road U, and the reason it's so valuable is it has highway access at 3 points. You just come in from U, it's got to be quarter mile. But if you go straight on the road next to it, you come out, you know where the car dealerships on K enter there, you come out there. And if you go the other way, you come out by Westwood Center and get right on Bridge. It's a valuable piece of property. It's a big piece of property. I think it's 40 acres. The problem we had was it was owned by a family, but not the same individuals. And the one who owned the most didn't want to sell. Okay, so then they had, well, at least 8 months went by where the family discussed it amongst themselves, and the mom, I think her name was Wilma Witter, finally decided that she would support a sale, and we reached a tentative agreement with regard to price, and they put all those pieces of property together. After that, we went to get an environmental assessment. It's always been agricultural land, so really it was done by REI. There are no issues identified. Then we had a commercial property appraisal. That's the one I was most worried about, because you have to understand the value of all those properties put together. And just if you don't do a complex analysis, you don't really see the value of the land. But that came out to be exactly the price that we were paid for at $2.2 million, which was good. That recently came in. So we're past that barrier. Then we took a look at the properties. There are 3 homes on there. And those people didn't want to just get up and leave, and we're not planning on building anything for 10 years. Okay, so the goal was they could stay for 4 years and just rent from us but we'd own the land. And then the houses they could be moved, but they'll really be raised. I think they're going to have $2.2 million, and they're going to want, they're going to have the capacity to build nicer houses. We did an inspection, and all 3 of the septic systems failed. Okay, so we're going to have that issue. That's an unresolved issue. I've set that aside as a secondary issue. The next issue becomes this property is in the Village of Maine and is not compliant with current zoning, which is R1. And the town officials, the village officials, they know it's a valuable piece of property, and they had hoped that it would be developed by something that would produce more tax base. Because, well, I guess that's what people do and local officials do. I know that's what they do, or they hope for. And they are particularly strained because this is the village that took over the debt and all the issues associated with the village of Brokaw when they went bankrupt. So we've had 2 discussions with them, face-to-face discussions, and the last one, they said, well, tell them this. I said, you know what, pass a motion, I'll read it to you, because sometimes there's a difference between what I hear and what you say. So the motion is, the last motion is, motion by the Village of Maine Board. Trustee West Shupke made a motion that the Village of Maine is receptive to support Marathon County's project, provided that Marathon County cooperates with development to offset the loss of tax base. I'm not exactly sure what that means yet, but I think there's still enough common ground to keep exploring it. I've already said, we're not going to do a pilot. We can't do that. We'd have that on every facility for every municipality. But let me just read it to you again carefully. It doesn't say anything about that. It says, provided that Marathon County cooperates with development to offset the loss of tax base. So my belief is that we cannot approve this here. We cannot build what we want without the town of Maine's cooperation, and that we should continue to explore this. We'd have to restructure the deal. I still think that's possible, and try to get this done in January when all the pieces are in place, because you could buy the land and say, well, it's not 10 years, we'll worry about zoning, yes, but I just don't. I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think it'll pass the board. So, I think you have to have zoning compliant with what we want to use. So, my recommendation is, as it says in the resolution, that we reject the offer I was negotiated, which was we'd be closing yet this week, that we continue discussions with both the property owners and the Village of Maine, and then ultimately the people who have the septic systems, get all the pieces in place before the board's asked to vote for anything.
Supervisor Tremling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote no on it anyway, because I agree with what we need as far as Marathon County, but I do not agree at $65,000 an acre. I got farmland, and I'll tell you, you can buy any farmland in Marathon County for $4,000 an acre. So if That's worth 65,000. I'll sell you mine for 4. Come down to Spencer. I'll sell it to you. Thank you.
We're not buying it.
Thank you. Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carter, it sounds to me like Maine is essentially, the town of Maine is essentially saying, well, if we're going to lose tax base, what's in it for us? Where's our compensation for it? Is that an accurate read of the situation? I mean, because that's what it sounds like.
You know, I don't want to.
Let's not be cute. Let's just go to brass tacks. They want to get paid for it because they're losing tax base. Correct?
They want to be able to see if we can help them develop some tax base somewhere else in their district. And I don't want to characterize it negatively because I don't, you know, to me to characterize it is to well, they're here, they could actually speak for themselves, but so, you know, it says what the motion says. That's all I know.
Thank you.
Corporate counsel.
I just wanted to clarify, the motion before you is to disapprove the purchase at this time. When it went, and I'm speaking to Mr. Tremling here, and so I want to make sure that everybody understands that an aye vote means to disapprove the sale at this time.
Thank you. Supervisor Seibert?
I happened to see the report, and a main issue for me was it said that this will become a prime area for development. Now, the reason we're thinking about getting out of the city of Wausau is because of congestion and development around us. So if we're going to go into an area where the book says it's going to be a prime area for development, I think we need to look at more than one place. I mean, we can't put our eggs in one basket. I mean, we got to have options.
We do have options in that report. The only thing you have to be careful of, Mr. Seibert, is we're taking with us the Marathon County Wausau Parks Department, and we can't go to Marathon with that. You know, otherwise it'd be a transport cost every day for those that half of our work is in the city of Wausau. So we have to be close to Wausau. This is in the village of Maine, but right on the border of Wausau. So there are other sites. The plan identifies other sites, but there's a limited distance we can get away from Wausau.
Okay.
Supervisor Stark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When this came before Finance, one of the things that maybe I can clarify too is like the reason we are where we are in making this recommendation of saying that we don't approve this now is because we do think that there are things that need to be done, but if we had just done nothing, or we would reject it based on not meeting the criteria that we had, it would have been, we would have lost this by default, and then we'd have kind of like, well, the contract didn't go through because we did nothing. And we didn't want it to end up being nullified by inaction on the part of the board. This is the best way to go by saying, no, we're rejecting the offer. However, we want to continue talking. And at the same time, as the administrator said, we still have other potential options if this, as it starts to unfold, just looks untenable. But we didn't want to just lose this deal by default. That's why we thought it's better to go on the record and say, no, not now.
Mr. Chair, just add one thing. The other thing is, we're not talking about building it for 10 years, so we don't have to be in a hurry. You know, I think we're in a hurry if we decide to go with this site and the resolution says keep working on it, but we don't have to do something this year. It's unusual for a government to be this far out in advance, but the Witter site won't be there 10 years from now. You know, so some of the opportunities will be lost if you don't do enough forward thinking.
Supervisor Nutty?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Carter, could you briefly remind us the existing West Street properties are part of the 25-year plan
Yes.
for Marathon Park, or are there other options for that, such as potentially returning it back to the city for other development? Could you enlighten us?
No, I think that our plan is that it'd be for park development, for storage for the fair and other kinds of uses. One of the things that we've talked about is it would sure be a lot nice if that railroad track wasn't there. And I did during that planning process, I actually get somebody to take my call from the Canadian National after about 35 tries. And they said that they did look it up and call me back. They said that link exists because of the 3M plant. And when the 3M plant's not there, that link will probably be gone. Well, how long is that going to be? Well, somebody pointed out to me they have a mining thing for 35 years. They think there's enough from the mine for shingles is what they make there for 35 years. Well, I don't know if that plant will be there in 36 years, but Marathon Park will be there in 36 years. And boy, land adjacent to that park in an urbanized setting isn't going to come up every day. And it does open up a lot of doors. But no, we've had a lot of discussion about, can we do that for economic development and stuff like that? No, we want to hold that for the park, the north side of West Street.
Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? All right, then we're ready to vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Resolution L, Public Safety Committee, L37, adopt policy on county support for sports events occurring on county highways. Resolution 73-19. Motion by Supervisor Wagner, second by Supervisor Schley. Supervisor Robinson.
I understand the need to adopt a policy relative to the county resources. I'm just a little bit concerned over this policy at this time, and the policy doesn't appear to allow us to charge for the sheriff's department's involvement in races on non-county highways, which could be, if we're going to divert them off of, will create a significant expense. Secondly, the Chamber has done a lot to identify recreation and trails and other activities as a way of attracting people to us, and they've embarked upon the Iron Bowl series, which is a series of races that are throughout the county. And I'm a little bit concerned about what this might have on the impact that it may have upon that effort. And third, we haven't communicated this to other organizations that it's coming, and it may have a stifling impact on them. So I would ask that we delay this for a month to give us a chance to work with the Wausau Area Chamber and Wausau Area Events to make sure that we don't have some unintended consequences that would drive activities outside of the county, and to also address with the issue of how do we recoup our cost associated with the Sheriff's Department on those non-county highways. So I would move to postpone this for 1 month.
Okay, got a motion to postpone, second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Any discussion? I can just tell you from public safety, we did have the sheriff and Jim Griesbach there and talked to them about the costs, and they felt that, to start with 5 of them and move forward would be a good way to do it. But I don't have a problem with delaying it another month. It's not an emergency, and I don't think we're gonna have too many more 5Ks or anything at this time of the year, so I don't have a problem with that. So any other discussion on the motion to delay? Okay, then we will vote on the motion to delay. Motion carries unanimously, so that will be delayed till January. When? Oh, it's not unanimous? Oh, roll me. Okay, sorry about that. Couldn't see you. All right, resolution Resolution M, Diversity Affairs Commission and Extension Education Economic Development Committee, M38 Lunar New Year, Resolution R 74-19. Motion by Supervisor Wagner, second by Supervisor Lowell. Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to give a point of clarification regarding the Lunar New Year here. The Lunar New Year, I was approached by members of the Chinese American community who approached me and shared a little bit to me their interest about putting together a Chinese or the Chinese New Year this upcoming 2020. In the state of Wisconsin here, there is no Chinese New Year in the state of Wisconsin here. If you want to go to anywhere that's either a Lunar New Year, you would have to go down to Chicago or the Twin Cities. So the Chinese American community here approached me with the interest of putting together Lunar New Year, and I brought up the Diversity Affairs Commission brought this up as a discussion as a way of supporting the Chinese American community. The Lunar New Year is the most important holiday in the Chinese community, but is also celebrated by individuals from Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, the Philippines, the Chinese, Japan, and Korea, and other Asian countries, except the Hmong community. So I know there were some concerns regarding this being another Hmong resolution, but in this case here, it is not. It's a resolution acknowledging the other Asian minorities in Marathon County here. If my fellow colleagues remember that that ginseng has a huge role in Marathon County here, and a lot of the individuals that do purchase ginseng are from the Asian countries. In 2016, we saw the total dollars sold from received from ginseng was $20 million. There's 180 ginseng growers in Marathon County here, and that the $20 million equate to about 590,000 pounds of ginseng. So 98% of that is sold throughout the that ginseng is all sold all across the world, and 98% of it came from Marathon County here. But if the board doesn't object, I would like to invite Ms. Melinda Osterberg, who is part of the planning committee for the Lunar New Year, to give a little bit more remarks or background regarding the Lunar New Year.
Go ahead. Is there any objection? Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. So Supervisor Zhang and I were approached by members of the Chinese American community, if you will, about facilitating and helping to put on a Chinese New Year celebration, and just to recognize this holiday, which is celebrated by about 25% of the world's population in Marathon County. So we just, taking that to Diversity Affairs and then to EECD, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have, and I'd be interested in hearing any sort of feedback you do have on the resolution. I think it's a great opportunity, as Supervisor Zhang said, we have a very obvious relationship with these Asian countries that this resolution can help forward.
Thank you. Supervisor Gill.
I also just wanted to speak briefly about the reason that this passed through the EEDC committee is because the Lunar New Year resolution is only one part of the activities that Melinda and others have been working on. And I wanted to make everyone aware that at the end of January 24th and 25th, that's what it is, there will be the only large-scale Lunar New Year celebration in the state occurring here in Marathon County. They have been planning this 2-day event, and it will have both educational and economic impacts on our county and beyond, because we do expect this to attract people from beyond county borders to come in. Friday afternoon and evening, there will be an educational presentation on the economic impacts of our business relationships with China specifically. And then there will be a dinner, a cultural dinner that evening, highlighting the different foods and traditions for the Lunar New Year. And so that will have the educational component. And then that Saturday, the 25th, there will be a full day celebration. They are bringing in, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the only America-based dance team, lion dance team, that has actually won a championship in China. And they will be coming here thanks to sponsorships from some local companies. So there are a lot of really neat opportunities that will have a positive impact on our county that we haven't seen before. And this will all be at Marathon Park. If you want more details, I know that they just this past week, I saw the social media posts on it. The other marketing pieces will be coming soon, so please watch for that. But this is a way to highlight the impact that all of the other Asian representatives in our community are having on us. So it is more than just a symbol here. We're going to be actually having an economic impact. And members that have been involved, constituents that have been involved in this, have reached out and expressed to me that by passing this resolution, it actually, they would like to use that to demonstrate the support that this county has for residents who have this as part of their history and their traditions and their value. And it means a lot to them to be able to say that the county board sees them, recognizes them, and they'll be able to use that as they market this to bring more people into our county. So there are some really larger scale benefits here that I want to make sure everyone is aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Krause?
Yes, I'd like to mention that in addition to having a Lunar New Year, that American has embraced Oriental alternative medicine for many, many years, and that runs into the billions of dollars. There are Thai and Oriental massages. We have martial arts like Kung Fu, Aikido, that's being taught in this area and in Lincoln County. We have acupuncture in this area. We also use many herbs from the Orient: ginger, cinnamon, lemongrass, dan quai, ginseng, and ginkgo biloba. And there is also acupressure. So there are many kinds of alternative health modalities that we have used from Asia, including Reiki, which I do. I'm a Reiki master. So, and I've had acupuncture and I use herbal myself. So I'm familiar with some of these modalities, and they have made a difference in the lives of many people who have been endangered and injured by traditional medicine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Comments? All right, we're ready to vote then? Motion passes unanimously. Nope, one no. I'm sorry. Almost unanimously, one no. All right, moving on to 38 AMM County Board, recognizing Brad Carter for contributions to Marathon County on his retirement. Resolution 75-19. Motion by Supervisor Zerni, second by Supervisor Nutting. Any discussion? Supervisor Rosenberg, or Supervisor Robinson?
Having known Brad since 1988 and had the opportunity to watch him progress in his career through the county, I, for one, would like to extend my deepest appreciation and thanks for the contributions that he has brought to us. And I think the resolution speaks to major accomplishments that were done in each of his capacities, whether it was in human resources and dealing with sexual harassment and diversity education, training and development of our capacity as an organization, or as the deputy administrator in terms of planning the West Side Master Plan, which we referenced earlier today, and certainly in his capacity as administrator, as a person of vision, helping us with our strategic plan, starting the priority-based budgeting process, and putting us on our path forward. And as a friend and person that's seen that development over the years, I want to say thank you for a job well done and many years of dedicated service. And while you're fleeing, we know that you will reside in the county, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Supervisor Rosenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just very glad that we're recognizing the more than 3 decades of service that County Administrator Brad Carger has given to Marathon County. In a lot of ways, I feel really connected to Brad as he started his first year working for the county in 1988. I started my first year of school, kindergarten. The most popular movie at the time was Beetlejuice, and you might not know this, but if you say Brad Carger 3 times in a row, he appears. So when I listened to his favorite accomplishments last week at his retirement, where someone must have sung his name 3 times to the tune of Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I realized that I was more connected to his work than I realized. He talked about the planning and collaboration it took to turn a landfill into the East Bay Sports Complex. In high school, I was on the regional summer soccer team, and we used that space as our practice spot. I think I officially met Brad in 2010. We talked about social media and what it would take to get the county engaged. He decided to not take that on, county president on social media, but he must have decided I knew a little something, because a few months later, he asked me if I would serve on the Marathon County Library Board. I said yes, and I'm still serving on that library board, so thanks, Brad. In 2016, when I decided to run for county board, I knew that I would at least have one friendly face, and since that face was the county administrator, that's all I really needed. In the last 4 years of regular encounters with Brad, I feel more connected than ever. He's demonstrated time and again that if you want to get something done, it's possible as long as you're willing to meet at the table and participate. He's shown that integrity is a trait that exposes itself in different ways. And while it usually comes naturally to people who have it, it can sometimes ruffle feathers. He's shown us that the road is sometimes a little bumpy, but our diversity in this county is our strength. So thanks for a solid 30 years, Brad. Good luck in retirement, and just know that I'm going to be conjuring you up by saying your name 3 times when I need some good advice and hear that funny laugh.
Thank you. Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to use this opportunity to thank Administrator Carger for his decades of work. I know that there's a resolution that kind of is a snapshot of his achievements and his accomplishment or his contribution to Marathon County, but I think there's way more to it that's not listed. But on behalf of District 19 and my constituents, I just want to say a big thank you to Administrator Carger for everything he's done for this community, and I'm hoping that although he's going to spend 6 months in Florida, he won't mind if other individuals reach out to him for advice or for a consultation as well. So thank you. There's no words in English or Hmong to use to describe my deep appreciation to you, and I just want to say thank you and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you. With all of that, I'll have the clerk read the resolution, the R7519. You guys covered a lot of it, but there's a few things in there, so.
Whereas Brad Carger has served the residents of Marathon County for over 31 years, serving as Human Resources Director, Deputy County Administrator, and most recently as County Administrator. And whereas during his tenure as Human Resources Manager, Brad developed and conducted a sexual harassment education program to increase employees' understanding and improve our work environment. And whereas in 1992, he provided leadership in the development of a diversity education program for supervisors and managers to address issues surrounding race and sexual orientation, which received a NACO Achievement Award in 1994 and was included as a model program by the Clinton administration as part of the President's One America in the 21st Century initiative. And whereas while serving as Deputy County Administrator, he provided leadership in the development and implementation of the West Side Master Plan, which resulted in the construction of the Center for Civic Engagement, and led the team that successfully negotiated with 32 property owners to acquire the land for the new building without the use of eminent domain. And whereas throughout Brad Carger's career, he has been committed to developing future leaders through the Leadership Academy, mentoring others, the development of the MLK Training Day to increase awareness and understanding of differences, and serving as an example for others in implementing the county's core values, resulting in his receiving the Wisconsin Idea Award from UW Extension for his support of lifelong learning. And whereas during his tenure as county administrator, he has continued to work on improving the quality of decision-making by leading efforts to implement the priority-based budgeting program, engaging the county board in the development of budget assumptions and priorities and implementation of the county's strategic plan. And whereas during his tenure, he has worked to form coalitions to increase the community's understanding of complex issues, as exemplified by the county board approving the acquisition and development of the East Bay Sports Complex at the former Holtz-Krause landfill. And whereas Brad has been recognized for his contributions by numerous other organizations, including the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired, for outstanding public service, for helping people with visual disabilities find jobs with Marathon County government and with other area employers in 2010, the United Way's Partner in Caring Award in 2012 for his advocacy for people in the community who need support beyond what government can provide, and the Wausau Daily Herald recognized him as one of the People of the Year on 3 separate occasions for his efforts to open up the budget process to the public in 2008, for diversity initiatives, including business modification to better accommodate the disabled in 2010, and his leadership in addressing community issues in 2016. And whereas in addition to his work with the county, Brad has been an active leader in the community, serving in several leadership positions with the Wausau Area Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club, including his leadership. He led efforts to improve the quality and depth of Bluegill Bay, which resulted in an improved fishing spot for area residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Marathon County Board of Supervisors recognizes the contributions that Brad Carger has provided to improve the quality of services provided by Marathon County, and thanks him for his many years of dedicated service to improving the quality of life for our residents. In addition, the County Board would like to thank him for his leadership and wish him the best in his well-deserved retirement.
Thank you. Any other additions? And then we're ready to vote. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I think we should give him our standing ovation.
This didn't pass, I probably should just stay seated.
Thank you.
I just want to talk a little bit about what some of my future plans are, because I won't have a chance to talk to each of you individually. I'm planning on, Linda and I are going down to Cape Canaveral starting January 3rd and staying there till mid-May. I do a reset on our life and figure out what it is that we really want to do, and we're looking forward to that. I promised other people here in the courthouse that I wouldn't call and laugh when there was bad weather here. I will laugh, but I won't call. So we'll do that. My goal is to still stay active. I'd like to do some adjunct faculty teaching for either a university down in Florida or one up here. I haven't really pursued that yet, but I did that for 15 years before with Upper Iowa. I really enjoyed the interaction with the students, and I think I can bring something to the table. So I'm going to be pursuing that. We're going to be living down there, snowbirding it with 500 other snowbird families in the same gated community. It's a common event. They're mostly from Western Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and share a lot of same cultural stuff. You know, I've been here. I worked here longer than I was alive when I came here, and I've been to a lot of retirement parties and seen a lot of goodbyes, but it never was mine. You know, it's going to be different in the future, and I'm going to miss a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, I'm ready to go. I'm looking forward to a new adventure. Thank you for everything you've done through me with me for the years. Thank you.
Right. Okay, moving on to N, miscellaneous business, 39 announcements or requests. I know the clerk has some announcements and some requests.
First of all, Vice Chair McEwen asked me to express sympathies to the families of Craig McEwen and Jean Mask, whose mothers have both passed away since our last meeting, and also to the family of Jeff Johnson, whose brother just recently passed away. So our sincere condolences and sympathies to all of those families. You all have a little blue card that I put at your spot tonight with some contact information for myself and my staff. It's been brought to our attention over the last week or so that the phone tree into our office goes to the 1000 number, which is kind of a difficult, frustrating phone tree maybe to navigate. So if there's anything that you need to get a hold of us for, you have all of our direct numbers right there. If we thought maybe you could just put that in your iPad. So if you need to get a hold of us directly, feel free to use those direct numbers. As part of that, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to all of you our new staff in our office. This is Heather Zunker, who we hired about a month ago to fill in the vacancy in our office. So over the next couple months, I hope you'll take the opportunity to get to know Heather. She's kind of learning the ropes, as we all are doing together, and she will kind of be the liaison for County Board along with myself. So we welcome her to our office, and she's been a wonderful addition to our team so far. Just a reminder that non-candidacy paperwork, if you are deciding not to run for County Board, the deadline to have that paperwork to me is next Friday, December 27th at 5 p.m. It is just a simple form that needs a signature. And then if you are planning to run again, those of you who have not turned in your declarations of candidacy, along with your campaign finance registration and your nomination signatures, those are due in our office January 7th by 5 p.m. Both December 27th and January 7th, we will keep our office open until 5 p.m. The courthouse will stay open for 5 p.m. so that we can meet that statutory requirement to be available until 5 p.m. on those days. I need signatures from Public Safety, Infrastructure, Exec, Forestry and Recreation, Environmental Resources, Park Commission, Transportation Coordinating Committee, Health and Human Services, HR, Finance and Property, Diversity Affairs, Extension, Education, Economic Development, and I believe everyone who is here has already signed the full County Board resolution. I believe everyone has done that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to use this opportunity to invite members of the county board here to an event that's being held by Mr. Jim and Marty Harris at their Hmong collection at the Wausau Center Mall this Thursday at 6 o'clock. They're doing a celebration to recognize the 15th anniversary, celebrating 15 years of success since the closure of the Watan Krabak, or the refugee camp that held the last remaining Hmong refugees, and was also the beginning of a new chapter for the last wave of large wave of Hmong refugees. It's an event to kind of celebrate the success of basically the Department of Health, along with social services and all the other partners in the local area here who worked hard to assimilate the Hmong community to the larger community here. So it'll be held at 6:30 at the Wausau Center Mall, right by the J.C. Penney area. Food will be provided, so if anybody's available, then please do join us then. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Klein has some announcement.
Thank everyone for letting us touch your iPads tonight. There's a couple that we still need to touch. I'll go over those in a minute. We were a little disruptive, and I apologize. A couple of votes that we interrupted. Sorry about that. If anyone wants to go over how to get to their pay stub, to refresh that, there's 3 IT staff still in the clerk's office waiting for you. So if you want to check it one more time so you know how to get into it, to the shortcut to get to your pay stub, they can do that for you. And then the last thing I have is there's 4 iPads that we'd like to see, and that is Tom Soipers, if yours is here, Jake, if yours is here, Donna, if yours is here, and then Yi, if yours is here.
Mine's not here. This is a different iPad.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other announcements? Supervisor Durham?
Just note that our final airport board, Seaway board meeting is this Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning. We will get almost the final figures for 2019, but they won't be quite complete.
Okay, any other announcements? All right, then I'll look for number 40, move to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Langahan, second by Supervisor Butke. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned, thank you.